it seems like something happened that reset civilization. And there's very little evidence of advanced civilizations before that up until recently.
The oldest mummies ever found, dating back thousands of years before the ancient Egyptians, hidden fortresses in the Sahara Desert, and monoliths. These are dark ruins found beneath the desert that are still a mystery. When we think of mummies, ancient Egypt pretty much immediately comes to mind, right? But mummification was a thing long before ancient Egypt, thousands of years before. The Chinchorro mummies were found in the deserts of South America, specifically in northern Chile. They're the oldest examples of intentionally mummified humans, way older than the Egyptian ones. Egyptian mummies date back to around 3000 BCE, but the Chinchorro mummies, at least the ones that we've found, date back as far as 5050 BCE. Over 2,000 years earlier. Bernardo Ariaza, a physical anthropologist with the University of Tarapacá, stated that this is the first known culture to intentionally mummify their dead. They had a whole process of embalming and mummification. They'd remove the organs, sometimes replace parts of the body with sticks, reeds, and clay, and then wrap the remains with a layer of clay and other materials. The oldest known naturally mummified body connected to the Chinchorro culture was found in the Atacama Desert and dates back to around 7020 BCE, a relatively well-preserved dead body from over 9,000 years ago. That is insane. As for why they went to these lengths to preserve their dead, we don't really know for sure. In 2010, satellites helped uncover the remains of over 100 ancient fortresses buried beneath the Sahara Desert. These fortresses were built by a mysterious group called the Garamantes, who lived in what is now Libya. The oil industry had already mapped the area for drilling sites, so archaeologists were able to take those satellite images and look for signs of old walls and structures hidden in the desert. The Garamantes were around from about the 2nd century BCE to the 7th century CE. They lived in one of the harshest, driest places on Earth, but they weren't just surviving, they were flourishing. But how? Well, they built these insane underground channels to transport water from reservoirs, which they'd use to farm. At some point, though, their water sources dried up, and the Garamantes settlements started to fade away. The desert eventually covered up their villages until they were rediscovered. Sticking with the Sahara Desert, let's talk about a giant mass grave that was discovered there. So that's always fun, right? Archaeologists found this massive graveyard dating back to the Stone Age in the Sahara's Teneri Desert, one of the driest places on Earth. This site, called Gobro, was discovered by paleontologist Paul Serrano during a dinosaur hunting expedition in Niger, and it turns out this was one of the largest burial grounds from that time. There were also some weird finds. The remains of one man were found with his head in a pot. Another set of bones were found on top of a turtle shell, and no one really knows why. The site was actually used by two very different populations over thousands of years. The first group to use Gobro were the Kifian, a group of hunter-gatherers who lived there around 10,000 to 8,000 years ago, when the Sahara Desert wasn't a desert at all. Actually, it was full of plant and animal life. Elena Garcia from the University of Casino says the Kifian grew up to 2 meters tall. That's about 6'5". We don't usually think of people living that long ago being that tall. Obviously, they were not short on food. They were skilled hunters with harpoon tips found near their graves, and there were also remains of large animals, like those from the savannah. But around 8,000 years ago, the Sahara dried up, and the Kifian vanished. Then the rains returned, and another group, the Tenerians, arrived. They were shorter, and they had a very different lifestyle. The Tenerians herded cattle and hunted with tools that didn't require as much physical strength as the Kifians. In November of 2020, something unexpected was spotted in the middle of the Utah desert. While flying over a remote canyon, a wildlife official spotted this strange metallic pillar sticking out of the ground. The pilot, Brett Hutchings, said in an interview, quote, "One of the biologists is the one who spotted it." And he was like, whoa, 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 turn around. They quickly turned the helicopter around, and when they saw it up close, Hutchings said, we were kind of joking around that if one of us suddenly disappears, then the rest of us make a run for it. It looked like the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey, standing about 10 feet tall with 3 smooth sides. The Utah Department of Public Safety posted a photo of it, but they didn't reveal its exact location because they didn't want people flocking to the area. Still, the internet did what it does best, and within hours, a Reddit user named Tim Slane figured out where it was using Google Earth. He even pinpointed when it appeared, somewhere between 2015 and 2016. But what no one knew was who put it up and why. Was it an art installation? Was it a prank, an actual monolith from space? Nobody knows for sure, and you can't go see it now because the thing just mysteriously vanished one day. This is all that's left of it now. In the Valley of the Kings, where King Tut's tomb was found, another strange discovery was made back in 2005. Under some ancient workers' huts, archaeologists found this hidden limestone chamber that had been untouched for over 3,000 years. Inside, they found 28 massive jars, along with 7 coffins. All the coffins were sealed tight, but there were no bodies inside. Instead, the coffins and jars were packed with stuff. Pieces of pottery, rocks, cloth, wood, and something called natron, which, for those of you who don't know, is a powder used in mummification. One coffin even had another coffin inside it. So what was going on here? Could this have been a fake burial meant to fool grave robbers? It's not impossible. The Valley of the Kings had been targeted by thieves for centuries. This tomb seems to be the one place in the valley that didn't get looted though. If it was a decoy, why didn't they add any royal artifacts though, like inscriptions, chests, valuables to make it look legit? It almost seems like someone went through the trouble of creating a fake tomb but didn't bother to finish the job. Some experts think the contents could be leftovers from an embalming workshop, or maybe the remains of a tomb that was already looted. Whatever it is, no one really knows for sure why these random items were sealed up in decorated coffins and hidden in a royal burial ground. Well, this is a surreal image, a shipwreck in the desert. The Bom Jesus was a Portuguese ship built in the early 1500s, during a time when the Portuguese Empire was expanding rapidly. We don't know much about this ship's history, but it would have been used for long-distance expeditions to places like India and China. The ship was carrying valuable cargo in its voyage from Lisbon, heading around Africa's southern tip toward India. But as you could see, the ship didn't make it to its destination. It's believed to have sunk after a violent storm off the coast of Namibia. The ship was pulled too close to shore, hit a rock, and would have capsized. The storm was so intense that the ship's hull broke apart, scattering its cargo along the coastline. The wreck wasn't discovered until 2008, when a diamond miner found some copper ingots and elephant ivory while digging for minerals. This led archaeologist Dieter Nolly to get involved, and then maritime archaeologist Bruno Wers was called in. There were tons of precious coins, over 2,000 pure gold coins and thousands of pounds of copper ingots. There were no human remains, so either some of the crew survived or they were just lost at sea. Timgad is like something straight out of an adventure novel. It was founded by the Roman Emperor Trajan in the desert, and over time became a major trade hub. After being sacked in the 5th century, it became a Christian center, only to be abandoned after another raid by the Vandals in the 7th century. But eventually it was swallowed by the desert sands, preserving the city for centuries until it was finally rediscovered in 1881. Today, you could still see these incredible ruins, like the Arch of Trajan, the baths, and the massive Temple of Jupiter, which is almost as big as the Pantheon in Rome. One of the coolest things is the ancient graffiti. In the Forum, at the center of the city, someone etched, "To hunt, bathe, play games, and laugh, this is life." And I gotta say, that sounds like the life to me too. What you're looking at here isn't some surrealist art piece or a computer-generated liminal spaces video. This is the ghost town of Kolmanskop in Namibia. One time, this was a diamond mining village. Back in 1908, a railway worker named Zacharias Liwela found a diamond in the sand. Word spread, and before long, German miners had set up camp in the area. The town was built in the style of a German village, and you had a hospital, ballroom, there was a school, even the first X-ray station in the southern hemisphere. It had all the amenities that you'd need in a modern town, but by the 1920s, the diamond fields started to dry dry up. And when a bigger diamond deposit was found, about 170 miles south, people relocated and the town was left behind. By 1956, the place was completely abandoned. Now, the desert sands have taken over, with rooms almost completely full of sand. Again, it's very surreal to look at, but man, does it make for some great photos. In 2014, paleontologists made an incredible discovery in the Sahara Desert. It was the remains of a Machimosaurus Rex, a giant marine reptile from the Jurassic period. These things were huge. Picture a crocodile, but twice as long and weighing over 6,000 pounds. It would have been an absolute monster. What really blew scientists away was the size of this thing's skull. It measured over 5 feet long, which was about the height of some of the researchers who found it. Now, until this find, scientists believed the Machimosaurus had gone extinct by the end of the Jurassic period, but the fossil was dated to the Cretaceous, meaning this creature lived much longer than we'd previously thought. The Eye of Sahara, also called the Richat structure, is a huge circular formation in the desert that looks like a giant eye. It's massive, about 30 miles across. It's so big that you can actually spot it from space. And for a long time, scientists thought it was caused by a meteorite crashing into the Earth, creating an impact crater. But after digging deeper, geologists believe it's actually the result of a geological dome that's been eroded over millions of years. Still, not everyone agrees with that explanation, so there's still a lot of mystery and stories surrounding this thing. And when there's a mystery, you can bet people come up with some wild ideas. Some believe it could be the remains of the lost city of Atlantis. The circular shape of the eye matches Plato's description of Atlantis, which he said had concentric rings of water and land. Others think it's the work of aliens, with some claiming the perfect symmetry of the structure is too precise to be natural. One thing is for sure though, it looks absolutely incredible. With all that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.